Hello and welcome to Witty-Banter. I'm your host, Marie Ryan. Today's topic is how to land your dream job. Joining me today is Morgan Cummins from TalentHub. Hi Morgan.
Hey Marie, lovely to be here. Very excited to get into today's topic. It's a passion of mine and just very grateful for the opportunity too.
When I had this topic in mind, you were the first person that I thought of, so I'm really glad that you're here. First of all, Morgan, who do you help?
Great. And well, firstly, thanks for that. Clearly, I hope my own B2B content works if I became top of mind to do this. So I wear two hats in the business that I'm an owner in, which is TalentHub Recruitment. The first hat is that of a recruitment director, and we specialize in what I call modern recruitment, where we really care about our candidates. They're the most important part in the process. And then we work with super clients who have great cultures, and our role is to match the brilliant candidate with that great culture. We do it across an ecosystem of marketing, e-commerce, digital marketing, IT, technology, HR. So basically the full suite. But our specialism is in the tech sector and the e-commerce sector. And yeah, we love what we do. The other side of my business, which is sort of was born out of being a recruiter 5 to 6 years ago, was when I went back to college to upskill. And it was my first time in nearly 20 years upskilling in executive coaching, and just found a real draw for helping people, which started probably before my recruitment career, but really sort of took off while I was helping people get great jobs. And it was then that I realized I was coaching without putting a name on coaching. So on the coaching side, we do executive coaching, where we help individuals kind of break through to the next step, or if people are stuck. And then my specialism is career coaching. So again, I love helping people who are sort of at a crossroads in their career. It happened to me 10 years ago before I came into recruitment, where I was at a crossroads. So yeah, I think people invest in lots of things. Like when they're sick, they go to the doctor. When they have a problem with their teeth, they go to the dentist. If they're getting a mortgage, they should go to a mortgage broker. Because I know my own mortgage broker has saved me about 25 grand over the period of my mortgage. But why not, when you're thinking of a career change, go to an expert in that, So yeah, I hope that's a long answer, but I hope that answers it for you, Marie.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think the world of work is a strange one because we don't have career coaches as of yet. You're in school and college and it's so structured. Then you're let out into the big bad world to navigate it on your own. And it's hard to even know what direction to go in or how to get there or what opportunities are available. I think it's really easy to keep yourself small and not really know the full breadth of your skills or how valuable they really are. So it's great, I think, if somebody can highlight them for you and point you in the right direction.
No, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned school. Just before this interview, my daughter, who's in TY, sent me the SOS text saying, "Dad, I forgot my iPad." And thankfully, it's a short cycle across a field, really, to get to her school. But I bumped into the principal, John, there, and I could see his eyes light up when I was talking to him. He just asked me what I did, and I said, "This is career coach, recruit." I could see him going, "Oh my God!" And he actually said to me, "Oh, would you? I think I'd like you to come in and have a talk." And I'm all for that. In fact, for my daughter's TY, she's coming into my office once a week for 6 weeks. But what I've done is get her to meet lots of my inspiring clients, especially my female clients, and not like to influence it, but just hopefully that something might give her a little spark of inspiration. Because like the principal was saying to me, we get shoved out of school, and we learn about maths and English and accounting, but there is nothing really in school or in college really directed to your career. Where I'm actually seeing it the most now is actually with my ed tech clients. So I've one client, the UX Design Institute, and they employ career coaches as part of the service for their students. And because they want the people that are spending, hard-earned money of their own to be successful after they've upskilled. So it's great that we're seeing it. I'm seeing it as well. We use a health and wellness platform called Car Connect, and again, within that platform, there's everything from therapists to financial experts, but I'm seeing career coaches there as well.
Yeah, I think in the future it'll change completely. But there was the old thing of get a job for life. That's completely gone. But I feel like people don't always want to acknowledge it. I hope in the future it will be a thing that employers recognize that, like, whatever job you want to do, no matter how much you enjoy it, it's always going to be a stepping stone for the next thing. I just think that would make conversations easier. So then you could say things like how long do you want to stay in your next role? And then you know that the person wants to, I suppose, accomplish as many projects as they can and goals before they move on to the next thing. I just think there would be a lot more transparency in the process overall.
I borrowed a great idea around that from LinkedIn 5 or 6 years ago for TalentHub. There was a brilliant book that Reid Hoffman wrote about how they retain their best people. And essentially it was what you just said there, which is they used to sit down with their people within their first 6 months and offer them what's called a career growth promise. So basically say, look, we know we might only have you for 3 to 5 years, but while you're here, you may as well let's try and have a bit of fun and do the best work possible. And within that, they'd ask them simply okay, so where do you want to go next? And in the case of the example they gave, it was he wanted to get into the, stockbroking, equity trading markets. So they said, great. So they designed work that spoke to that skill set, which he was really good at, that strength. And then what happened is he continued to excel within LinkedIn because they kept designing really good work that motivated him outside of the basic motivators of salary and benefits. So it's simple. Like, we adopted one of our one just comes to mind because she wanted to work in helping attract businesses into Ireland, and we said, great, we do a lot of work with IDA companies. And she did actually 5 years with us, and then has landed her dream role with Stripe, and is bringing in employment, doing that thing. So I think, if business owners realize we have a big responsibility for people's careers, I think you're going to get a lot more back from that person if they authentically see that you actually care about their careers.
And on LinkedIn, I know you're the mindful recruiter. What is a mindful recruiter?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I do get asked it all the time, and I guess the easiest way to explain it is 10 years ago, I was really stuck in my career. I was going through my second bout of burnout, and there was a Headspace app that had just come out at the time, and I found the only way I could actually get through my day in the stressful advertising world I worked in was to use this meditation app, the mindfulness app. And it helped me so much that it led me down a path of personal development and got me curious about changing careers. Something was obviously wrong if I was going through a second stage of burnout in my career, like in my mid-30s. And I just stuck with that practice, and then found my dream job. Within a couple of years, people started giving me this feedback that, Morgan, when I'm in session with you, oh, you're just, you're grounded, you're very mindful, I said, okay. So I think we need to listen to the feedback that comes back. And then one of my accountability partners actually suggested it to me. He said, look, you've just got a different approach to your craft. And you are, like, as I said at the start, we genuinely do our best to match great people with great people. So it kind of just re-evolved from there. But I like to think that we do take the work that we do seriously, and we try our best. Now, like, recruitment has a bad rep for lots of good reasons. which we can get into if you like. But sometimes if you don't understand how it works, like we could post a job and get 300 applicants. And of those 300 applicants, there could be 2 that are actually matching the brief our clients give us. So we try our best in human ways, especially with the content we write, to tell people, look, you're not the right fit for this job. But I think if people understand that there's an avalanche of people thinking they're the right person coming at you, and all we're trying to do is make sure we're finding that sweet spot match, then you can be that bit better, I guess, at being mindful of what you do.
Yeah, makes sense. So the topic today is how to figure out, well, how to land your dream job. But first of all, people need to figure out what it actually is. So how do people go about figuring out what their dream job is?
You'd be really surprised, Marie. The first question I ask everyone that I start a career conversation with is, what is your vision of the future? And I didn't have an answer to that up until probably 5 years ago. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But if you take one thing away from today, it's that if you don't get clear on where you want to go and set a goal around getting there, and a strategy to get there, I believe you will wander quite aimlessly, maybe get a bit lucky, but basically not really get to where your potential could get you. Okay, so that's the first step. Really, is taking time out and stepping back. And if I may, I can give you some ways you could kick this off, which is everyone has a group of people around them that support them. I call them your cheerleaders, the people that you might go to when times are tough, who really know you well. And at a first stage, that's what I did. I went to a mentor of mine. I went to my best friend's wife. I went to my sister and had conversations with them about where I was in my career. And they gave me enough feedback to realize that recruitment could be something I could be really good at. So then I had a destination in mind. I had okay, I can see how this would fit. But the real evidence for me was when the next step, which is basically auditing your strengths. And that's not, yes, you can work with a coach to do it. It's probably going to be more effective, but I didn't. I asked again for feedback from people, and it came back that I had kind of 3 to 4 core strengths. Because if you can align strengths and what you enjoy doing to a role, it can become something that becomes almost like something you start to love. So they would be the first two things that you need to do. But I have lots of more steps, so I don't know if you want me to continue or have any questions.
Yeah, I think the steps are really useful. For me, like you, I think if you ask most people where they see themselves in 5 to 10 years, they don't really know. They give a standard rote answer in an interview, but I think they don't really know. But like that, anything is achievable if you set your mind to. It sounds cheesy, but it is. You have cause and effect. If you have a target in mind and you keep on working towards it, eventually you'll achieve it. That's a fact. So yeah, I think the most important thing is to figure out what your dream is, what your vision is, and what you really want, not just what you think you can get, not what you think will most impress people, not what you think you should do, or not even sometimes what you think you deserve, because I think a lot of people undersell themselves. So I think this is the most important part. So whatever steps you have, I think will be very useful for people to know.
And I love that you said cause and effect, because essentially that's what you need to do. You need to cause an effect for this to happen. So once you've got, and you don't, people get stuck here. They try and find what's perfect. But let's just make it simple. Let's just say you're a head of marketing on the B2B or B2C side. And let's say you do want to become a CMO. Well, my advice is you get out your laptop, you get out the whiteboard, and you start researching industry verticals based on your knowledge to date, based on hopefully a bit of strength-based work that you've done, based on your time on this planet that stand out to you. Obviously, growth industries are to me the obvious ones to go to, but it could be the non-for-profit sector. But pick at least 3 industry verticals. Then this is the research phase where you go deep into those verticals, and there is so much great information on the web and out there to do that. But the real trick, I guess, to this, and this is something I've evolved in my model to help people land their dream job, is start looking just when you start to see people that stand out, that maybe even inspire you, or at least go, oh my God, like how did that person go from like the FMCG business into, the tech business? How do they make that happen? Or it could be someone that's like gone further than the CMO position, and is, because less than 10% of marketeers make it to, CEO. They could be the GM of their company. So if you can spot and identify, I say at least 3 inspiring people, what you've got now is 3 verticals, hopefully 10 companies within those verticals, and 3 people that you've almost like your North Star that you can point yourself to. And guess what? Success leaves clues. And this is where I guess I see people, I give this advice out to everyone. I mean, when they come, and I train our teams to give this advice out to everyone, because if you're not going beyond the extra mile in your job search and you're just in business as usual, which is just responding to the ads that come up on the platforms, your chances of success are with that 95% of people that are doing that. Whereas if you want to step into the 5% of people that are actually spending a few hours a week on this, and if you're out of a job, you really should be spending 2 to 4 hours a day doing this, you're now climbing into that 5% of the job seekers that are doing something different. Again, before I move on to my next step, have you any questions on that step?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned figure out what you want. I think that's a crucial step too, because I think a lot of people want to take the next step in their career because they think they should, because they think it looks good. But you mentioned CMO, and only 10% of people get to that level. But I'd say only 10% want to be there really, and maybe even less deserve it. It's like if you say, well, I want to be CMO, but like, does that fit with your lifestyle? If you have hobbies, say if you have children and you want to spend lots of time with them, you're really plugged into like your wider family life and your community, then having such a busy, stressful job mightn't be suitable, and the salary may not even justify the added pressure. You might be better off at marketing manager level, marketing exec, or there might be something within that you really enjoy. Like I love podcasting. Some people love SEO, some people love writing articles. You might be happier doing something really niche that you really enjoy at a mid-level salary, rather than shooting for the stars for a big salary that you don't, and big job that you don't really like or enjoy. So I think that's really important, and you need to figure it out. And it's really hard to remove the biases from everything you're told and everything we're supposed to expect and work for, and really get granular about what it is you want. And then you'll need to be able to hang tough if you're, say, a content creator writing articles for SEO, and someone comes along and says, well, you could be this, you could be that, to hang tough in yourself and say, well, actually, yeah, but I really enjoy doing this. This meets my needs.
I'm so glad you said that. And it's one of the core principles of trying to meet. So the next step in the cycle, or in the process, is putting together, in one way, what I call a 5-point touch point plan to get in front of these people. And that can be virtually, that can be events, that can be in person, hopefully. But the whole idea of doing this is there are no right answers until you go on the journey. And I absolutely agree. We are so preconditioned. Like my dad had a job for life, and I was for years trying to emulate his career until the coach I worked with said, you're not your dad. Like, you're a totally different version. Yes, you've got DNA, but would you be happy? And funny enough, he took that path, and that's a story for another day. But by speaking to these people, you will actually see, and it reminded me of some of the CMOs I'm fortunate enough to meet. Some I can tell from the minute I meet them are really unhappy in their jobs, and that's just a fact. So if you're not willing to invest that time, as I said at the start, like as if you were getting a mortgage, which you should do, you really are leaving this up to the kind of the gods, really, in some respect. So, but if you're willing to take that little bit of control, but then just as you said, keep going with it, because this is a path, and it could lead you to, like it did for me. If you had told me 10 years ago I would be part owner in a recruitment business, I'd be working in a job I absolutely love, helping people growing their careers, I would have thought you're bananas. But I had met 3 or 4 really good recruiters before I even started working in my first recruitment job. And then when I got kind of to the top of the tree in my first recruitment agency, but was deeply unhappy with how they went about their craft, I went and I met 3 more. And that's how I found TalentHub, basically using this strategy, found who was the better players with the better cultures, who cared about people. So again, there's such an element of trial and error with this.
Okay, so you said to find the ideal company verticals that you want to work in, and to find people, I guess personas of people who you want to emulate. And you said that jobs boards don't really work. So what should people do instead? Should they reach out to those people directly, like on LinkedIn, or is there a different way?
Yeah, so job boards do work, okay, but you always have to deal with the facts and not the emotions, okay? So the facts are, and in this jobs market, essentially, there has been roughly 35% to 40% less jobs being posted on all job boards. We measure it. So we measure the marketing sector, and we have software to tell us that that's a fact. Then you have, last year was a very headhunted market. So every brief we got, over 90% of the placements were people my team and I had reached out to, passive candidates, and put a job in front of them. Fast forward to today, where unfortunately there's a lot of people made redundant. There's at least double the amount of candidates going for the roles. So it's table stakes to use the jobs boards, and you should be using all of them, okay? And you should be registering your CV on all of them, because a lot of us have licenses that can get your CV through there as well. You've got to put yourself out there. But what my point has always been is, that's what the herd are doing. So do you want to be the purple cow over here that's doing something differently, which is defining what success looks like, building an action plan of where that might be and who that might be with. And then, yes, this third step, Marie, is where I see people fall down. And it's where you either need an accountability partner, or if you can afford it, a coach, but you need someone in your life that's holding you accountable on almost, if not a daily, a weekly basis, on how are you strategically going after these people. And if we're talking to predominantly an audience of marketeers here today, you know how to build, you should know, or work with Marie here and building a content plan. And what is that like for you? So that's just starting out LinkedIn, finding the person, linking in with them. 9 times out of 10, people will friend you back. Then it's about writing something meaningful, that you've spent a bit of time showing them that you've researched them, that you're authentic, that you're not coming out with the big ask straight away of, hey, look at me, give me a job. No, you're actually paying them loads of compliments, genuine compliments. You're hopefully giving them some insight. And then you're saying, look, I'd love to learn about your career. I'd love to learn what happens in brand X. And guess what? 90% of the time, they're not going to respond. Okay. But this is why you need a 6 or 5 touch point plan, as you know, from B2B marketing, to try them again. And look, there's so much email software tools out there. You can get a person's email in click of a button. But if you're not willing to push yourself outside your comfort zone in this stage 3, it's not that everything else you've done is worthless. It's not, because it's really good that you've now defined what you want to do or have a good idea. But if you don't act on it and realize that you are going to get rejection, you are going to get like a 1 in 10 chance of getting people coming back to you. But I can guarantee you, if you stick with it, and I've seen the results firsthand of people, then you've got control of your job search. The other thing, and not a lot of recruiters tell you this, but I think it's really important to know, is when imagine you've got, and we'll get onto what a great CV looks like in a minute. When you've got a really good CV, you've identified what you want, where you want it, and maybe even some of the people. I get so many unsolicited mails, and that's the name of the game. That's, of course, it's brilliant. But they're lazy. They're like, here's my CV. Again, if 95% of the mails I get are like that, and I get 5 that are, hi Morgan, I really respect your time. I love your content on LinkedIn. Compliment. Oh, I like this person. Sorry, but compliments work. Here's exactly what I'd love to be doing next. Here's some companies I'd love to do it in. I've done a bit of work in my CV. I'd love your input on it. A recruiter is far more likely to get back because you've respected them. You look a lot different. And also, unfortunately, because it's not your fault, but there's so many people in the market who are looking for salary increases in their current jobs. Like, everyone has agendas, right? So you need to show that with conviction, you're serious about your job search.
Okay, so we've figured out what it is we want. We have the target list of companies and we've started reaching out to them. What are the tips and tricks to creating a good CV, and what are the things that employers are really looking for?
A CV, like with anything, we talked about this offline before we started. In life, we generally get about 12 seconds before someone makes an opinion of you. It's a fact. And first off, don't put your photo on your CV. It doesn't matter who you are or what. It's just people make an opinion, and it's just not. Why be put in that bucket? So, but all joking aside, we reckon a recruiter or hiring manager spends about 8.5 seconds scanning a CV, first page of the CV, to look for what. Imagine, like, I could go through 300 CVs in a day. And I'm trying to move fast. I'm trying to get to the best candidate. I'm trying to get the best shortlist that match the brief. So if you're not getting my attention, and quite simply, attention is through achievements. So that can be straight in, very simple bio. And if you've got a long enough career, you can start with key achievements in my career include 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe. Or you can go the other route of, you say you're head of marketing. That CV, you have to explain in one sentence your ecosystem. I'm the head of marketing, reporting to a CMO with a team of 10, managing a marketing budget of 2 million. Great. Ecosystem. Key achievements in this role to date. Entry into a new market last year, exceeded targets by 20%, etc. Marketing achievement after marketing achievement. They have to be real. They have to be measurable. They have to grab that attention. If you've been promoted 3 times since you joined the company, there's achievements there. I think we're not conditioned we're conditioned, like you said earlier, to list out our responsibilities. A good hiring manager knows what a head of marketing does, right? So you're wasting space on that CV listing out your roles and responsibilities. What you want to be doing is, once you catch someone, then I could spend 10 minutes screening your CV. But if you don't pass that first 8.5 to 10 seconds, I'm afraid, and as we said earlier as well, AI is doing a lot of this for the tech companies, which is a whole other conversation. But again, it's no different. That's what they're being programmed to look for.
I've read before that the ATS systems generally get rid, I suppose, of most of the CVs, and the majority of applications aren't looked at by people. Is that true? As in, do you need to format your CV in a certain way and optimize it for keywords?
Yes, it's 100% true. And just on the very simple thing, you should always make sure. A lot of people save their CVs out as PDFs. That's absolutely fine. But people make the mistake of saving them out as images, and then that's actually not going to get picked up. So that's the number one mistake people make when they save it out. It's an image and it's not a text, and that's just whatever. They just have to check their settings or check the PDF that the text is readable. Remember I said before 95% of job seekers do the same things that everyone else does? Yes. So back to your point, when you're applying for roles, especially with the bigger tech companies now, you have to tailor your CV to the keywords that are in the spec. And that might take you an extra half an hour, but if it's the difference of you getting a screening call or not, I think it's a half an hour well spent. The amount of people calling me disgruntled that they've applied for this, they've applied for that, and they haven't got a call back. But guess what? If you're not doing those simple basics, you're just not going to get into the race.
Yeah, it makes sense. You could spend all day applying for jobs on jobs boards and not get anywhere. But if you spent the same amount of time and tailored your CV, a few applications could get a completely different result.
And just on that point, Marie, I was at a brilliant talk a few years ago where a colleague of mine in the industry brought this up. He said people were putting their hand up asking questions saying, oh, I've applied for 100 jobs in the last month. That is actually just wasting everyone's time. If you go back to the first part of the strategy, defining your vision of success, you shouldn't be applying for a huge volume of jobs, because you should be narrowing this down, and then the jobs that you're applying for, you're spending that extra time researching. And back to your ATS question, you're looking for connections within the company. So 9 times out of 10, the connection will still tell you to apply through the ATS. However, you can get lucky and the person there might say, yeah, do you know what? Our ATS hasn't given us the best results in the past. This is how you do it, or I'll pass it to a human. So if you're just scattergunning your approach, which I know people get desperate, and that's a whole other conversation on how they bring that into interviews. But if you think about quality over quantity, it's really that 80-20 rule.
Yeah, and I've read a lot about cover letters. Some people say you should definitely include one, and others say don't bother, they don't get read anyway. But what's your opinion of cover letters, and if people decide to use them, how can they make them stand out?
I've probably been asked for cover letters by my clients less than 10 times in 10 years. So no, they're definitely fizzling out. But when you apply directly, yes, it just seems to be one of these things that's there. Again, I'm going to give you an example of a GM of a tech company that I helped a few years ago transition from being sort of a director of marketing into that GM role. This is where your creativity and your authenticity has to come through. We all have written standard cover letters that we've taken off the web. That's not going to cut it. Your first pass on this has to be genuine, has to be authentic, and make it look different. And what this amazing guy did was he had actually applied with this business over 8 years ago. So he kicked off his cover letter saying, I've always loved your brand. In fact, I applied with you 8 years ago and unfortunately didn't get an interview. But here's what I've done since I last applied. And he listed out a list of amazing achievements. Not bragging. Like, one of them was going back to do an MBA. And not only did he get the interview, he got the job. And he was searching for 6 months. So That's the difference. Don't be lazy. They're still a tool. And then the flip side is, again, if you're working with recruiters, give that information to recruiters, because what we do is a cover letter, but it's not. It's a really short and sharp summary of what you've done, why you're a good fit. So you're helping us do that as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you mentioned AI earlier. Are there any AI or software tools that can help people to edit and format their CV correctly?
Yeah, yes is the short answer. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of what they are. You just have to use ChatGPT to figure it out. Clients have told me that people have worked out ways to use that technology, AI technology, to answer their psychometric tests, which is mind-boggling, because to think that people they're passing the test, because the fail rates are ridiculously high with these tests. You can run your CV through basically the basic version of ChatGPT and get a better version back. But then I pass it by a human, and most importantly, back to what I was saying about doing all the research, pass it through that mentor or accountability partner, or maybe that CMO that you've now made friends with. Like, don't tell them that you've actually used it, but say, look, I've been updating my CV. Like, that's the best. I'm working with I'm helping someone in the tech sales space at the moment, and we've got his CV to, I think, a great place, but now I've shared it with 3 chief revenue officers who are ex-clients of mine to really put it under scrutiny to see if it would get their attention. Yeah, I work in the industry, I have those connections, but why can't you leverage both what technology's given you and what real humans are in terms of qualitative feedback will give you as well?
Okay, great. So the person has figured out what they want to do. They've taken steps to land their dream job. They've edited their CV to get it in front of the right person. And now they have an interview. What can they do, or what should they do before the interview and in the interview to really nail it?
So painting the same picture as before, but what's great is now they've come down a funnel. So they've come down from, let's say, 100 applicants all the way to if it's a first round, it's probably 6 to 8 people that are at that first stage. So you've got to remember, the person that gets the job is rarely actually the best qualified candidate. It is unfortunately the best prepared candidate, and a candidate that is in a really good mindset. So if, for example, you've gone through redundancy and you're 6 months out of not working, and you've been through quite a few rejection processes before, versus a candidate that has been headhunted by me and is very happy in their job, but is quite excited about this opportunity, and they're going in back to back, who do you think, Marie, is going to just probably leave a better impression in that 12?
I think the person that doesn't want it as badly, because they're going to have a different air about them. They don't really need it. They can take it or leave it. The other person is likely to come across a different way, but they might even over-prepare, and they could have it built up to be much bigger and better than it really is, whereas it's just a job. And the interviewer knows that, and the other interviewee knows that too.
The interview process is very similar to the dating process. And we've all been there. I have on first dates where if you're too eager, there's no second date. So if you're overconfident, there's probably none. And if you're underconfident, it's trying to find that sweet spot. So first and foremost, you've got to be cognizant of your mindset, of the subconscious vibes that you're giving off, because humans detect it. And whether it's on this format or now, thankfully, there's a lot more back in person interviews, that's just the reality. So how do you get into a good mindset? Back to what you said earlier, is now you get into preparation. Now you outwork the competition, because remember, you don't have to be the best candidate. You have to be the best prepared candidate. So it's like what they say about a Barack Obama speech. The speechwriters put in an hour for every minute he speaks. And for good interviews, to do a great interview, you have to prep. And sometimes the more it's really, I often see it, it's like the fourth or fifth interview, people start to really get it. They start to really get comfortable in what is a very uncomfortable situation. So where I've seen people, especially in this type market, make a big difference in their interviews is when they tell me, yeah, I've actually employed a specialist interview coach. And again, small investment, you're only talking about a couple of €100, big return. I have seen literally people go from shaking in the mock interviews I would design with someone to, I just finished one with someone yesterday who's going for a CEO role. And after 20 minutes, I stopped because she was nailing it. And that was in it. Now, she had to do all the work. I just directed. And a good career coach will do that. But I was like, the work here is done moment. And whatever happens with the outcome, that person is gone from being subconsciously unaware of what was holding them back interviews to now confidently owning a room. And if that job, and back to your really important point, when we're desperate, we'll take anything. The grass is always greener, as they say. But when you're more aware, and I know you wanted to get into this later, you will then ask better questions. You will then really determine, are these the right people to work with? As opposed to be going in, which I have done, that rabbit in the headlights, just hoping that it goes well.
Yeah, it makes sense. For me, I've always thought that the interview process in general is quite broken. The candidates are expected to do a lot of research. The employer has so much power, and the candidate has to do so much research. The employer knows everything about them, more or less, when the person walks into the room. And then the first question is usually, tell me about yourself. You know everything about me. You have my CV, you've seen my LinkedIn. All I know about you are the lines that your team wrote about your website. That's basically it. But it should be a bit more like a first date, I think, than an interview. Because like that, you might be in an interview and after the first 17 seconds, you're like, this isn't for me. But you still have to pretend that like, oh, this is my dream job. Can't wait to work here. Just love everything about it. And you still have to answer the dreaded question, why do you want to work here? Even though you're thinking, I don't. So I think in the future, again, I hope that kind of changes too. But if somebody really wants to nail an interview, they really do want to get the job, what's the number one thing they should do, apart from, I suppose, doing research, because a lot of people don't, and showing enthusiasm and showing knowledge? Is there anything else that they can show that shows that they're the right person for the role?
And it speaks to what you were getting at there. I believe you can turn the tide in an interview. It takes skill, it takes practice, it takes a lot of work. But fundamentally, firstly, it takes that research. So let's go back to the career strategy of finding your dream role and setting that vision. Let's go back, and if you have done those 2 hours a day that I recommend job seekers out of work put into this strategy, and have really spent your time getting to know a company, then getting to know the hiring team in advance, you should be all over stalking the people that are going to be in that interview. Hopefully, if this is one of the companies on your list, by now you might have had the chance of speaking with anyone in there. Or if it's a retailer, you'll have gone out to one of their retail sites and spoke to the staff. You'll have, again, just outworked the competition in how well you know that company, and then that's going to show up. Like my client yesterday, she knew their business inside out when I was quizzing her on the business. There was no shortcut given, so that she could imbue that, like she'd actually spoken to 3 of their customers. She had actually asked, but she didn't get a response, but she found 3 of their customers. It wasn't that hard. So she had gone and outworked everyone else to the point of that's going to just show up. And then if you get, like, back to the dating analogy, if you can pick up the cues, if you can really be in the moment, you can start taking control by your preparation, by remembering, like you said. I think if you can shift your perception that an interview isn't an interview, it's actually like a business meeting. And Marie, when you or I go into a business meeting, I'm armed with loads of questions. I'm there to listen to them, but I want to ask my questions too. And I always have my 3 points that I want to leave and land. So if you can go in, change your mindset that this is how I'm going to approach it. And okay, I know it's an extreme situation, but if you've done all that research, hopefully by the time you're in an interview, you're not finding out then that these are the wrong people to work with.
Yeah, it makes sense. Some more research at the start. And what questions should candidates ask in interviews?
You should always have a minimum of 3 prepared. The most likely, if you've done a good interview, is some of them will have been answered. A thing that I think we're going to do a whole other podcast on another day is around the job spec, because the job spec is a really poor source of information. It's a lazy document. What's never in it is what success looks like in a year's time. So if you can ask a question around, when we're all sitting around this table in a year's time celebrating a great year, what would be the 3 major milestones that I have delivered for you and the team? That's a question that's going to get people stopped in their tracks. I think another question should always be linked to people and culture, but it's up to the candidate to really lean in on what they want to ask, because if you're not trying to get a sense of what that is like, you're walking out with half the information. And then what a really good candidate does is during the interview, they're so in the moment, they have their notebook with them. And yes, you should have a notebook with you. You can have some cues written down on it. Something should have come up in the interview that it wasn't the right time to ask then, but at that end, it gets across how good a listener you are. If you can say, look, Mary, there was something that we talked about earlier. I'd love to actually, you're talking about an expanding market here, like, to show that. And the thing you don't ask is, oh, what are the next steps and what's the salary? Like, I know, but I want to get that out there. Don't ask stupid questions. And if all your questions have been answered, you could almost turn your book around and go, here's the 3 questions I had. And again, you're dehumanizing it. Because if someone has, and I have been this soldier, done 8 interviews in a day, and someone has a bit of authenticity about them with something like that, like my friend who wrote the brilliant cover letter, you remember, you need to be the purple cow in the herd of cattle.
Yeah. And one tip I heard previously was at the start of the interview, try and make small talk for 10 minutes. It's a good chance to bond and connect with the person and see if you can connect on a human level. Because if you're working with them, you're going to be having water cooler chats, you're going to have meetings, you might have business lunches. You want to see how they really think. So if you have those 10 minutes of not talking about the interview, and it might even go on a bit longer, but it's a real chance to make a personal connection. Is that true, do you think?
I love it, actually. And it's no different to what you should be trying to do in your business meetings as well, where appropriate. As humans, we release brain chemicals that actually, it's called the love hormone, and it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel this environment's actually an environment I don't want to run and hide from, which a lot of us, let's be honest, want to do. So by doing that, you're arming yourself up to make this more inviting. And I would actually recommend the interviews do it. And as I said, I know we're going to do a separate pod on that topic. But if you're not willing to make the days of the grilling interviews by the way, it's still a tough talent market to get the best people in. If you're someone that thinks that's the way you're going to find out about a person, they're also going to smell that off you and not going to want to work there. So I think the interviewers need to be working hard to make it more personable. And some of the simple things, we recommend to our clients. It's not that we invented them, but it is maybe starting that first chat in the canteen, then bringing them in, like showing them a bit of the building. I even had a CEO in the summer meet and greet the candidates from their car, because they were in an industrial estate, in a I suppose not the most salubrious part of Dublin, you know. And every candidate said, "Oh my God, I can't believe Patrick came out and met me, walked me in and out of the building." So, and what, as you said there, is you release, I think it's oxytocin is the chemical, or is it dopamine? I'm not sure, but that's what you're trying to trigger. So why not? Or if, like, again, if you're not willing to experiment a bit, you know, this is definitely a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think one thing that would be great in an interview process, but people don't do it due to time constraints, would be to go for coffee or lunch with the person. I think most people are probably way too nervous to do that, but it's really good for the candidate to see how the person reacts, and it's great for the interviewer to see how the person is in real life. How do they treat the waiter? How do they treat the person that's serving them? Even though they're nervous, and you can make concessions for that, but are they still polite? When the chips are down, because they're a little bit off kilter, like, their true values will show through. If they're mannerly, if they're nice, they'll still be mannerly and nice. It's very hard to fake it when the situation is a little bit foreign.
It's so funny you say that, because I've read where there's clients that have an arrangement with the staff in certain cafe, and the staff member actually spills coffee on the table, and they're actually doing that to see how the candidate reacts. Or they're, even if they're in the queue, they're going to a busier place to see how they can put up with a 10-minute wait in the queue. So it works on both sides. But no, look, it's a no-brainer. We ask all our candidates to do it. We tell our clients, you need to have a outside conversation either at the start or the end of a process. Some of our clients will bring them to dinner, which I think is a really good idea. Nowadays, I have other people that will go for a walk with them, you know, but like, it's back to my point about not investing in your career. Like, you should not be making a career decision with people that you're going to spend up to 60% of your time with in your working week based on 2 interviews. No.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I think it's so broken, especially because the onus is on the employer, and the employee is in a weakened position from the outset. So I think it's great if we can introduce things like that to make it a bit more personable and to get to know people on a more human level, because like that, you're going to be spending the vast majority of your time with them. You might as well spend time with people that you like.
And that is, I guess, a brilliant way to bring this all back to the original question, Marie, that the biggest mistake I see people making in their careers, and I've made it, and is that we get too excited about who the brand is, and we lose sight of who the people on the team are. Because you could, with the best will in the world, join a company from the outside in, and actually Netflix is a great example, that has this huge reputation for the culture book that everyone copied in Silicon Valley. But I've spoken to Netflix employees looking to return to this market who have identified that it isn't the best culture to work in. So in pockets it could be, but it's about that team. It's about those people. The best career decisions are when you join people. And I'll bring it back to me and TalentHub. I had 3 different options in terms of who I would move to next after my first career, and 2 of them were the big kind of brand names. But I could tell very quickly, after a 3-month in-depth process of 6 different engagements with the founders of TalentHub, that these were my tribe. And 6 or 7 years later, I can't even keep up. I'm still having the time of my life. I'm now an equity partner in their business, and I've set up a separate coaching business on the strength of their belief in me. So that didn't happen by chance. That was good research. That was being intuitive. that was being in the moment.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting that you say that Netflix has this great culture. There are a lot of companies that have great cultures, but it needs to suit the person. Like, for example, if you work in financial services or professional services, they're likely to be very straight-laced, very serious. You'll need to dress very professionally every single day. If that doesn't suit you, it could be the best company in the world, but you won't enjoy it there. Equally, in the tech sector, they're often really laid back. You'll often see CEOs that are 25 and walk around with drinking cups of coffee and wearing baseball caps. If you work in America, they might even say things like "How are you, man?" And other like strange, other like very laid back things. If you are a very straight laced or serious person, you will not enjoy working there. So you need to find the culture that really works for you, not just the one that looks good on paper.
Yeah, fundamentally, like that's what it's all about. Um, it's overused term, but culture eats strategy for breakfast every single day. And some of my amazing CEO clients who get that are what I said at the start of this podcast, the type of companies that you want to work in. So that's where you can actually figure those things out as well. And actually, one of the PR agencies in Dublin started launching a CEO index during COVID of like the most influential CEOs using social media. And that's a window into their world and their life. And I'll give a great example. It's Paul Kelly who runs Fáilte Ireland. Wow, like every Friday he has there's an open invite for I think an hour where people can just drop into his office, and it's obviously set up in a kind of department by department way. But if that's not a clear signal that the CEO wants to listen, wants to learn from everyone in the company, and get a pulse on what the culture is like, I don't know what is. So, and like that was easy enough for me to find out. So it's about doing your research. It's about making sure that, yeah, I think we can innately smell a bad culture, but I think a lot of people have been caught, Marie, with COVID and interviewing and also getting comfortable interviewing over video. And that's again back to what we said earlier. You need to get out, you need to meet the people. Like I've walked into offices and just went, oh my God, this place, like you said, isn't for me. And that's fine. I'm employed by my clients to find who is for them. And we do some great work with professional services companies, but Jerry, who heads up that department, knows the type of person that's going to suit that type of ecosystem. And on the flip side, so many people go, I want to work in a scale up. And you put them in there and within a month, they're going, this is bananas. Where's the, HR? Where's the, whatever. So it's back to the research. It's back to doing your work. It's back to figuring out. And actually, a bit of advice I was given by a different client of mine, Justin, it's also really important to identify what you don't want next in your career, because no matter how far along you are in your career, you should know that.
Yeah, it makes sense. So somebody has figured out what they want. They've gotten they've reached out to people in their network, landed the interview, and they got a job offer. What's next? When someone's evaluating a job offer, what are the signs that they should absolutely go for it and take the job?
I think the signs will have been there the whole way through to begin with. I think it's how humane and human they've been treated through the process, first and foremost. It's have they been listened to? Have all their questions been answered? Has everything been transparent? Then obviously they get an offer. In a lot of cases, they could be dealing with a recruiter. So that's where your recruiter becomes your career ally to ensure it's the right level, to ensure the benefits are, matching what's in the marketplace. And a recruiter, and it doesn't have to be a recruiter, your network can quickly tell you if it's a fair offer. And I think fair is really important. I think this is where candidates can make a big mistake over trying to eke an extra $2,500 out of an offer. if it's done in the wrong way on both sides, it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and you're setting things up for failure. Whereby if people can see the bigger picture, have a bit of trust. If they can't get all their expectations met, but get a clear pathway and roadmap to how they could be met in 6 months, because let's be honest, you're still an unproven quantity until you get into the job, as the employer are really. But if you feel this job is right, don't quibble over small amounts of money. Like with the tax difference anyway, you're talking about probably a cup of coffee a day. It's what you're fighting for. People get stuck with, I think they're pre-programmed by their parents or their ecosystems to negotiate. Know your value, do your research. You will know with some good research. You'll also know if they've lowballed you. And if they've lowballed you, that ain't a good start. That, we've had incidents where we've heard of clients just do some horrible things, which I don't actually want to repeat on live and air, but they've just showed behaviors at that offer stage, which are huge red flags. And I think people are wise enough to spot them. But I genuinely think it comes down to essentially gut feel. We have this limbic brain in our gut, which is much better than the brain because it's a black and white answer it gives you. So if you can reflect on a job offer over maybe a weekend, and if your gut is telling you something, I would always tell my candidates to go with what their gut is.
Right. And when evaluating a job offer, what are the red flags or signs you should decline? You mentioned if the employer is trying to lowball you as one, but what are other signs that you should really walk away?
Yeah, I think as well, I see this a lot in the scale-up world, Marie, where they give a pathway to equity, a pathway to bonus structures, a pathway to salary increases, because in a lot of cases, the tech world might come in below market rate, but that's a known. That is often stated at the beginning. But I recently reviewed an equity document for an accountability partner of mine, and they had put so much terms and conditions with regard to how his equity was going to be released every year. It was such a major flag. I actually shared it with a chief revenue officer friend, and he said the exact same thing. It was all too one-sided. But what was great was my accountability partner went back to the two founders who accepted it and said, look, we're really sorry, we've made a mistake. What terms do you want? Now, I still think it's a mistake for that individual to go forward, but he then got the opportunity to put his terms in and get their solicitors to look at it, which I thought was a great result.
Yeah, and in terms of next year, what's the recruitment outlook for 2024?
Genuinely, it's been, as I said earlier, 40% less jobs this year, double the amount of candidates minimum going for the jobs. First and foremost, if you're a candidate out there, be kind to yourself, because it's a hard slog in this jobs market right now. I hope today that I've given you some inspiration to do some of the things I'm recommending, take on some of the strategies to get into that 5% of the job seeker market. But what I'm seeing in the last number of weeks is positivity. We're seeing clients that told us in the summer, oh, there's a hiring freeze, we're back hiring Morgan, and we've got approval to use a recruitment agency. I've had 3 conversations in the last week alone about 2024 hiring plans in 3 separate businesses, which is interesting. One of the ad agencies I work with has got an increase in the amount of pitches they've been invited to from small Irish businesses, which is a really positive sign. And we link in a lot with Enterprise Ireland, and they're telling me that the increase in the amount of sort of things like digital grants for website development is up year on year as well, which sparks. It all comes from actually the SME community, and then at the higher layer when things get moved and people are looking in the big tech industry, because when people, it's such a small jobs market to begin with, it needs people to start triggering movement. And that's what we're seeing. I have no crystal ball, but back to mindset, you control every day your attitude. And if you wake up with a good attitude towards your job search, take on board some of the advice we've and some of the great advice you've given Marie as well today, I think you're increasing your chances in 24 to land. And as you said, it doesn't have to be the dream job first off. It can be the stepping stone to it. And that's a key principle. I think we all look for the next dream job straight away. I moved back to Ireland 10 years ago, and this is my dream job 3 jobs later.
Amazing. Well, thanks very much for the insights and information today. It was very useful. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how would they do so?
Thanks, Marie. So Morgan at TalentHub.ie is the email. Website is TalentHub, recently redeveloped, which we're very proud of, .ie. And then I live and breathe on LinkedIn. I don't use any other social platform. It's where I spend 2 hours a day every day in. So DM me there, or please give my content a follow or a like. I try my best, especially this year, to give career advice out. That's the core focus and tenet. I think it's probably why you reached out to me. But LinkedIn is, and it's where you need to play as well. So that's where I hope to see you again.
Thanks for tuning in to Witty-Banter. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, like and share. You can get in touch by visiting the website wittybanter.com. That's witty-banter.com, or follow Witty-Banter on LinkedIn to get updates as they happen.